Okay, thank you for joining me. Today we're talking about the lost art of customer service. Took us a little bit to get going. Technology is an issue almost perpetually, and that comes up later in my notes. So, without any further delay, let's get started. Hopefully, you can see the right screen. We ran into this issue the last time. Hopefully, you're seeing my deck. And if not, we're going to have some challenges, but hopefully that's what you're seeing. You should be seeing me now. And then hopefully here in just 1 second, you'll see the deck. And I'm just verifying this by checking my screen. And it looks like, yep, that's true. So we will get going here. Okay, the lost art of customer service. Why call it an art? Well, because even though there are tips and tricks that I can talk about, customer service isn't an exact science. What works with one customer may not work with the next customer. There are ways to be consistent, and that's what we'll spend a lot of the time talking about today. But that doesn't mean each situation should be treated in the exact same way. Here are some tips for today. Number one, I think you have to start by thinking small. How do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So there might be a lot of things that you uncover throughout this, and it might seem overwhelming, but the point isn't to overwhelm you. The point is to think about how do we make these changes day in and day out to our customer service. The next thing is to start now. Start customer service improvements today. Doesn't have to wait. There are things that you will learn today that could be implemented while you're watching this webinar. And the next thing is to think about the big picture. Think about how does customer service fit into the big picture of your organization and the things that you're trying to accomplish. My goals for today are to help you to think about why customer service is important and to determine how and where customer service fits into your organization and to look at all the opportunities for customer service. The last thing is to ask questions. It's okay to ask questions. I encourage it and I bring it on. I do have the chats running and I'll be able to check both of those here as we go. So I'm going to start with some assumptions and rules today because this workshop is not designed to fix things that are going on with your business. There are some things that happen with your business that this workshop's just not designed to fix. The first one is your product and service. I'm assuming that you have a good product and service. Customer service is not going to fix that. You might find yourself awash in customer service requests and or complaints if your product or service is bad. This workshop will help you address those customer service interactions, but it's not going to fix the product or service. As I've been saying in some of the workshops I've been doing recently, I talk a lot about the physical space, and we'll continue to talk about that today, knowing that the physical space and the rules for that change because of COVID-19. The other thing is that you're willing to do sales and marketing, or you're willing to fix it. If we're doing sales and marketing at a high level, at a good level, and our business is succeeding, then you're going to have customer service issues. You're going to have customer interactions. You're going to be dealing with a customer. It doesn't matter if that's online or in the real world, face to face. You will be doing that. So I'm assuming that you're already doing sales, you're already doing marketing, or you're willing to fix those or start those. I say this in every workshop, yeah, buts don't apply. A lot of this you might be thinking, yeah, but that doesn't really work in my business. And I promise there's a case to be made that it does. Customer service is a key part of building relationships with your customers long term. All right, getting agreement on terms for today. It's important to be speaking the same language, and I will talk a lot about advertising, marketing, and sales. And it's important to know that they're connected, but they're also very different. Advertising builds awareness, marketing gets clients to know you, and sales gets clients to use you. And what I mean in this context is marketing is all the things that we do to tell the story. Marketing is a storytelling thing that we do for our business. It can be a website, it can be social media, it can be a business card or a brochure, but it only becomes advertising when we're paying to get that story in front of the right customer. That's advertising, ads, right? And then sales is the transaction. It's when the deal is closed, right? So it's when money exchanges hands. So marketing is storytelling, advertising is paying to reach people with that story, and sales is that final transaction. And if we were to add customer service into this, customer service is the piece where it gets clients to trust you, right? That's that next piece. Customer service gets clients to trust you. So again, marketing, telling a story to the appropriate consumer. Advertising is paying to get that story in front of the consumer. Selling is the final stage where the transaction takes place. And customer service is a direct interaction with a customer. So thinking about customer service can take place in the marketing, advertising, and selling phase, and it can take place post-sale. We tend to think of customer service as that post-sale phase, but it can take place before that. All right, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. And that comes from Bill Gates. We don't look at unhappy customers as a loss or something to be upset about. We look at unhappy customers as a place to grow and as opportunities. So here are the facts. Here's some things that you need to be aware of when it comes to customer service. 70% of the customer's journey is dictated by how the customer feels they are being treated. Just so you know, before the workshop is over, if you're not watching this on Zoom, it'll be available. The workshop details will be available. So the deck and then some resources will be available in the Zoom meeting version of this. If you want the keynote of this presentation or the PDF of this presentation and then the resource guide, all you have to do is email me and request it. My email is josh@tinderbox.marketing, and I'll be sure to mention that several times throughout the workshop. So this comes from QMinder. It's a customer service website. They had some stats that they'd curated. 70% of the customer's journey is dictated by how the customer feels they're being treated. So how they feel is important. Businesses that deliver better customer experiences obtain revenues between 4 and 8% above the market. So if you deliver a better customer service than the competitors in your field, you're likely to be generating 4 to 8% more revenue than your competitor. 55% of customers are willing to spend more money with a company that guarantees them a satisfying experience. People want to spend money with companies that take care of them. For consumers, so this research for this was done at the early part of this year. And so this set of research comes from, I think, just last year. So they were forecasting for 2020 when they had this stat. But it says for consumers, customer experience will be more important than price and product by 2020. It's a crowded, noisy world that we live in. And I can buy different products from different vendors that are all the same. I can buy the same product from different vendors, right? I can find it on Amazon or by doing a Google search. There's more than one option anymore. That's not what's important. Price and product is not what's important. It's how we're being treated by businesses that matter to consumers. 70% of unhappy customers whose problems are resolved are willing to buy from you again. If you resolve the customer service experience from a negative standpoint, if that person had a bad interaction with you and you resolve it or you're determined to resolve it, they'll buy from you again, which I think is really important. Again, we're thinking opportunities. So where does customer service belong in your organization? Another way of saying this is, whose job is it? The answer is everybody's job. And where does it fit in your processes? It should be a part of every process. Tiffany Bova, I use this quote a lot because it just drives the point home so many ways. How you sell matters, what your process is matters, but how your customers feel when they engage with you matters more. What that means is selling is great and there are great salespeople out there, but we're well past the days of that typical used car salesperson. People don't want to be sold like that. They don't want to be marketed to like that. They don't want to be advertised to like that. They want to feel better about that interaction. And when you're thinking about it from a marketing perspective, when you're thinking about all the things that you can do in your marketing hub, right? All the things that you're doing to drive traffic to that marketing, that hub, right? That whether that's your website or a phone call or an email or a physical location back or in the future when we're allowed to go do those things again. All those things, there's customer service happens in there. I have it here happening in that sales process because once they get to your website, once they figure out who you are, that's when they're going to start interacting with you. Could be that they ask questions. So maybe they've been driven to your website and you have e-commerce set up and you're an e-commerce platform. You have a chat box that they can interact with and they can communicate with somebody real time by chat. That's customer service, even if they haven't bought anything. This is a model that I use a lot to talk about how marketing, advertising, and sales are all interconnected. And when they're all spinning in the right direction, we drive results. And the way to think about customer service is it's just another one of the gears. It's just another piece of this puzzle that's driving results. And if that gear stops, right? So even if that gear maybe isn't connected directly to advertising, even if that gear stops, advertising is going to stop spinning too. They all need to be spinning in the right direction. Something to think about before we get too far into this process is to be thinking about a model that I was introduced to years ago. And this is the idea that your business has sort of this designation on how it needs to work when it comes to owner, employees, and customers. So when you have your owner, the way the owner needs to be thinking about the company is the owner's job is to take care of the employee first and foremost. Right? And I know that that feels counterintuitive. A lot of owners of businesses want to take care of the customers no matter what. But the owner's first obligation is to take care of the employee. The next thing that the employee should be considering is taking care of the customer. So the owner takes care of the employee takes care of the customer. Guess what the customer then does? The customer takes care of the company. And when you have this circle, we win. What happens a lot of times is you have an owner, you have the employee, you have the customer, you have the company, but the owner doesn't take care of the employee. The owner takes care of the customer at the sacrifice of their employees. So this is characterized by owners who are constantly throwing their employees under the bus when it comes to customers, who are taking the customer side over the employee side, right? And that's not to say that the customer isn't always right. I think that's a fair statement at certain times. But you have to, as an owner or the manager, be willing to take care of your employee, because then a happy employee is going to take care of that customer. That's not a good model. That's not what we want. This comes from, ironically, this next quote comes from, ironically, I think a interesting example of customer service. The goal as a company is to have customer service that is not just the best, but legendary. It comes from Sam Walton, the legendary founder of Walmart. And in the early days, Sam really did believe in this when he was still alive and running the company. Early employees at Walmart got company stock. They were motivated by stock options and those kinds of things. And they were really good about taking care of their employees. A lot can be said about their current state, but at the time when this quote was written or taken by Sam, I think it really stood true. It's that legendary customer service is what the goal should be, not just the best customer service. Okay, so now it's time to get to the ins and outs of customer service and what that means and what are the things that we need to consider. Now we have a good working model of how the owner should take care of the employee and the employee should take care of the customer and the customer will then take care of the company. We have some stats to kind of guide us in terms of how important people view customer service to be. So we'll just start with some best practices. The first best practice is to consider empathy, patience, and consistency. Some customers will be irate. Others will be full of questions, and others will just be chatty. You have to know how to handle each of them and provide the same level of service each time. And that starts by being patient, being empathetic, and being consistent. The next thing that you have to think about is adaptability, right? Every customer is different, and some may change week to week. You might have regulars, right? You might be the Cheers of your industry, and everybody on your team knows all of your customers' names. That doesn't mean your customers are going to be the same person week in and week out or day in and day out, because people change, right? We have different behaviors, different attitudes, different things that outside forces that impact our attitude. So we have to take that into consideration, but also each customer is different. And you should be able to handle surprises and sense the customer's mood and adapt accordingly. This is a willingness to learn. And it's about providing good customer service by learning all the time. It also means clear communication, and you ensure that you convey to the customers exactly what you mean. And you don't want your customer thinking something like he's getting 50% off when he's actually getting 50% more product. So being clear in those things, and that a lot of times starts in the marketing message, right? Being clear in marketing can help address a lot of customer service issues. The other thing that can address that is a frequently asked questions page on your website to address a lot of those things that come up in the customer service area. The next piece is just having a really good work ethic. Customers appreciate somebody who will see the problem through to the end. When there's a problem, see it through to the end. If there are no problems, they appreciate that you worked hard on their behalf. The other thing about work ethic is making sure that you're not spending too much time solving a problem or with each customer. It's understanding the right amount of time so that you're not ignoring other customers. We've all probably been in that situation where you've gone to a retail store and you're waiting to get help, and the only customer service rep that you can see is thoroughly engaged with another customer and stays that way for what feels like an eternity. Right? We have to be cognizant of the fact that there are other customers when we're dealing with a customer one-on-one. The other thing is you have to be knowledgeable. Good customer service starts with a good knowledge of the company, a good knowledge of the product. Nothing is worse than getting a customer service agent who doesn't know how to answer your question or doesn't know how to solve your problem. Nothing is worse than having to go to your manager, right? Or going to their manager rather, to get the answer you need. That's not what that's not what customers want, and that's not what we want to do. We want to be knowledgeable. It is okay in certain contexts to say I don't know, though, right? We can say I don't know and then direct them to the place to get, or find out, right? Put the customer on hold, or say you'll be right back and talk to your manager. Being able to say I don't know is different than saying I'm going to learn it. So like learning everything about the company is great, but there are going to be cases where you don't know the answer, and instead of bluffing your way through, just admit it, right? The other thing is, this is one of my favorites, you have to have thick skin, right? You have to have the ability to swallow your pride and accept blame or negative feedback, right? Because that's an opportunity to learn. When things don't go according to plan, that's an opportunity for your business to grow and adapt. All of these things came from, by the way, I like to source my content, came from SurveyMonkey, which I think is just great. So customer service best practices: empathy, patience, and consistency, being empathetic with your customers, being patient and being consistent, being able to adapt, having a strong work ethic, being knowledgeable of your business, but not afraid to say, I don't know, and then having thick skin when dealing with customers. So we're in a different world now where I think more of us are spending time in the digital space than we are in the real world. And that's a direct response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's appropriate. Last time I did this workshop, I did it live. I was interacting with people in a live environment, right? So I had the opportunity to interact with people face-to-face, one-on-one, right, with people. That is a different environment than what I'm doing right now. This workshop is now being live streamed. It's available on Zoom, and it's being live streamed onto my Facebook page. The interaction in that environment is different, right? That's a different interaction and a different environment. So understanding that our world has shifted and that things are a little different is an important distinction to make. And it's okay that that's the world we live in. And it's okay that that's where we're operating from. I think it's appropriate that we acknowledge that. And that's why this next slide is dedicated to that. As much as I'm enjoying being on a webinar and that you can still see my face and that I can still respond to chat questions in a monitor that I have up, it's different. So it's important to acknowledge that. All right, so that said, let's get back to the deck and continue on. All right, the digital space. So the first one that comes up is what we're doing right now: video meeting, video webinar etiquette. The first thing about this that I've learned the hard way, so this is the third workshop in a row that I've done. I've done them the last 3 weeks, and the first one went off without a hitch. I was able to get it dialed in through Zoom. I was able to get that live streaming onto my Facebook page, no problems. And then last week, I ended up with a situation where a couple things went wrong. I wasn't able to get it to stream to Facebook. In the process and the link up between the two, Facebook just got into that spinning wheel and it just never got out of it. It just kept trying to load and load and load and it never stopped. That was the first thing that went wrong. I had to adapt to that. I had to copy and paste links and do that whole thing. The next thing that happened was I was sharing the wrong screen, right? So I thought I was sharing my deck, and what I ended up sharing was the notes, the presenter notes. And that happened for a few reasons. Part of it was because that's just how Zoom has made some changes in how desktop sharing works, and I wasn't aware of that. And also just because, user error, and then also technology is going to be a part of the reality that you live in. So being able to adapt to those things in real time is important. So understanding that things are going to go wrong is okay, right? It's okay. You're going to be okay. When it comes to specifically like meetings, I think one of the things you have to think about is that introducing everybody is important. Going through introducing everyone, good idea. Ensuring that you have a clean, work-appropriate background. So as I've been doing this webinar today, I like the background that I'm at, but I'm not sure if you can tell, but in the video recording, you can see that the light changes and makes the camera kind of like respond to it. So probably not going to do webinars in this environment because it's creating havoc with my camera, right? So I'm not a big fan of that. I like the background look. It's clean. It's a tidy living room, thank goodness. But I don't know that it's the appropriate background. So having a clean background is a good one. Looking into the camera, that's been a real struggle for me. So I have my little green dot that's telling me where to look, but it's really hard to ignore my little face in the box. And I want to look at myself, but then you don't see my eyeballs, right? And then it doesn't feel as authentic. So looking into the camera instead of looking at yourself is appropriate and a good move. Eliminate distractions, focus on the agenda. That's really tough in the digital space. And I'll tell you, out of all the rules, I think that's the one that's going to get broken the most. I break it all the time. I'm constantly making sure that things are working right by looking at chat and looking at my live stream and doing all that. So eliminate distractions the best you can. If you do find yourself being distracted, acknowledge it on camera. I don't have a problem doing that. Hey, I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to pause. I'm going to double check everything and make sure everything's okay. Beware of your audio and video settings. You should always run a test before things get going. Only invite participants that need to be there if it's a meeting. I think that's great. I mean, I think a lot of us are aware of that whole joke about, couldn't this meeting have been done in an email? Could this webinar have been done in an email? Kind of the same content or concept. And then the last one, which I thought was a really good one, is if you're the host, stick around. Don't end the meeting before everyone's jumped out. As the host, you should stay and let people hang around because you never know if somebody's trying to ask you a question, right? So if they're trying to ask you a question and they wanted to get to a private setting, or maybe they hadn't had a chance to use chat, you should do that. And I learned this one the hard way, the first workshop I did too, because during that first webinar, somebody was chatting me and I ended it. Well, I didn't have my settings right, so that chat wasn't saved. And they asked me a question and gave me their email address, and then I lost their email address because I didn't have my settings set up. If I had just been a little bit more patient, I probably would have avoided that. By the way, all those tips came from Zoom. The next one is email etiquette, which I think is almost as important in this environment. Email etiquette is something to consider because we're probably emailing at a higher clip than normal. Couple things that I think need to stand out here is one, I think it's respond as soon as possible, even if you're just saying, I'll need more time. The next thing is to spell check, right? I think spell check's important. Keep your tone. There are even third-party tools that you can do an add-on to your email that do a tone check to check the tone that you're using. In the resource guide that I'll make available, I give a huge list of this, of things that are available, and it comes from Forbes. So a good list of things to think about there. The next one in the digital space to be thinking about is your website chat. So a lot of businesses, especially in the e-commerce space, have website chats available for live customer interactions. In fact, I was just on with my internet provider today because my internet was acting up and being a little slow. So one of the things to think about when it comes to email chat is to set up your autoresponders. Make sure that an email message is set up to play, even if somebody's not monitoring the chat. And if that's the case, then that autoresponder should be, hey, we're not on right now. Email us or call us for a quicker response time. If you are on, the autoresponder is just a stopgap to help kill the dead space between when the customer messages and you interact, right? So website chat, setting up autoresponders, big key. The next one is the next one is when you're logged in, do respond quickly. Try to respond as much as possible or as fast as possible. Again, the autoresponder takes care of that. Be polite. It's really easy to have your tones change and not come across right. So when it comes to email etiquette and website chat, I think another thing to do is to avoid being sarcastic. I think that can be misconstrued in the digital space pretty easily. And then again, spell check. Social media direct messaging is an option. There is direct messaging on Twitter, it's a DM. There's direct messaging on Facebook, it's their messenger tool, and you can message businesses and people. There's direct messaging on Instagram. So every social media platform pretty much has direct messaging. So again, you want to double check that your autoresponders are set up, that it's okay to turn things off. I think that's another thing to know. It's okay to turn off Facebook Messenger if you don't want to. You don't have to have it. It's not a rule. They can go to your website. They can email you. And then, same as the website chat, you got to respond quickly. And then this is the one that's going to take a little bit of our time right now. Is it's not in my notes, or it's not in my deck, but it's in my notes. Is online reviews. And online reviews in the digital space get their whole section. So I'm just teasing that idea. For some reason, I thought that was in my deck. All right, customer service telephone. So we've got our webinars and our online space, which all those things are probably increasing in this environment. So email, website chat, direct messaging, video conferencing, those things are all probably on the rise in this environment. I have a feeling that so is telephone stuff, right? So the first thing when it comes to telephone interactions with the customer is to make sure you have an auto attendant set up. So if you're a small business like me, and there's only one or two of you and you operate everything off of a cell phone, it's probably not something to consider. But if you have a phone system and a landline, you might want to consider setting up an auto attendant to make sure that every customer interaction is consistent, right? Remembering back to our best practices. Some stats to think about when it comes to auto attendants and automated messaging. When positive auto attendant paths and custom messages play, so when it's a good positive message in your auto attendant, sales increase by 16 to 20%. That's just insane to me. 85% of callers prefer on-hold messages over silence. Caller retention increases by 40% when on-hold messaging is played. And again, all these stats will be in the deck, in the notes, so don't stress about writing them out if you don't want to. Okay, this one kills me. 180 hours. The average small business is putting clients on hold for 180 hours a year. That is so much time, right? So let's be aware of it. Let's be cognizant of the time that we're putting people on hold. The next 57% of typical on-hold client receives 100 calls a day. So typical clients get 100 calls a day, and 57% of those calls are put on hold for an average of 60 to 90 seconds, hours, right? So we have to think about that. The next one is voicemail. So even if you're running your business on a voice or on a cell phone like me, right? Here's my phone. Having a solid voicemail set up is a really good thing. Now, when it comes to auto attendant and voicemail, there is an option to do both of those on your own. A lot of automated phone systems will allow you to record your own messaging. I've had a client ask me to do it for them, which I thought was really cool. When you go to record your voicemail, or when you go to record your auto attendant, consider recording it into your laptop first and then uploading it if that's an option for you. If it's an option to upload your messaging, something to consider is white noises or different variations of colored noises. There's one called a brown noise, which is pretty funny. There's a website, noises.online, which lets you download free white noise. It's a noise generator, and it's a really great thing to do when it comes to helping deaden that background noise. You should consider hold music and hold messaging, right? Again, going back to those stats, people expect that and they prefer it. And then the last one is live answering. So when it comes to live answering and when it comes to recording your auto attendant or your voicemail, a couple things to think about. One, stand up when you're recording your message. This was a tip given to me by Pam Scott years ago. Pam Scott used to be the public relations person at Visit Spokane. And Pam Scott's job was to pitch Spokane, the area, to magazines and TV shows. And Pam told me that she always stood up. And she learned that, I think, at a conference or something. But she said, stand up puts you in a position to feel more secure and confident. So standing up, smile when you go to talk on the phone, smile when you go to record your message. So standing up, live answering might not be a reality for you, might be, but something to consider. Definitely when you're recording your voicemail, definitely when you're recording your auto attendant, stand up. Always smile. Smile when you're talking. People can hear that. When you're recording a message, when you hit record, be sure to pause 1 or 2 seconds, take a nice breath, and obviously try to be quiet, but take a breath, because the phone system needs time to catch up to you. I had a client that when I called the first time to check their auto attendant, the first word was completely cut off. It sounded so weird and they didn't even know. And it had been like that for years. So how many people were calling and getting the first word cut off, right? It's just, that's insane to me. And then when it comes to, if all those things are working and you're, leaving voicemail, right? Or you have an auto attendant, calling back is key. Calling your customers back is key. Now, I'll tell you this. I was on the website chat with my internet service provider today, trying to get my signal fixed. And they had a long queue and they said that they could call me back. And I said that was fine. And they called me back when I was in a Zoom meeting, and they called back 3 times. I couldn't take the call, but they called me back 3 times. This is a large internet company. I was impressed. I thought that was great. They were being persistent. Once I was off the phone, I was able to call them back and they resolved my issue. It was great. So calling back, you got to do that as quick as possible. All right. Your cell phone. A lot of businesses operate on a cell phone. A lot of businesses provide cell phones for their employees. We have to consider this. You have to consider cell phones when it comes to customer service. And the first thing is your voicemail. I changed my business name. So I rebranded. It used to be Tinderbox Consulting, and then I rebranded to Tinderbox Marketing. When I did the rebrand, I changed my website, changed my logo, changed my business card, changed my social media, changed my email. I changed everything except my voicemail. So months into the transition, I got a voicemail from a buddy who was ribbing me. He goes, Tinderbox Consulting, I thought you were Tinderbox Marketing. I'm confused. And he gave me the hardest time. You have to remember to check your voicemail. So record it and follow those rules. If you can, upload it, stand, smile, try not to be in an echoey space. Try to be in a nice place that deadens the background noise or echo. Script it out. Scripting out all of your stuff is always a good idea so that you say what you want to say, right? How many times do you call somebody and you get their voicemail and they'll say something goofy because they didn't plan it? They go, hi, this is so-and-so. Leave me a detailed message and I'll call you back as soon as I can. Just make sure you leave me a message so that I can call you back, right? Scripting it out avoids those issues. So voicemail, super important. This is something that we touched on briefly with live answering, but how do you answer? So how do you answer your cell phone? How do you answer your business phone? So we have, my wife and I work with we'll just call it a vendor, and we'll keep it as generic as possible. And every time we have to call this vendor, it's like we get the third degree. We say, hi, this is Josh with Tinderbox Marketing. I'm calling to talk to so-and-so. And they'll say, well, they're not available. Can I tell them why you're calling? And they get real, like it's like they're interrogating us. And when we pressed our contact there, he told us it was because they get a lot of spam calls and they get a lot of false, all that stuff, spam, advertising. And he said, we're just trying to screen that. And we said, okay, great. But I'm not one of those people. And so when I get called and I get treated like that, it doesn't make me feel very good. And he was reluctant to relent. And I'll tell you this, we are actively shopping this vendor and looking for somebody else. And it all comes down to how they treat us when we answer the phone. So how does your business answer the phone when you're live answering, whether it's a cell phone or it's your phone system? And then how do you answer your cell phone? Here's a famous one on how to answer your phone. I get this a lot. I call people who called me. And so this is like B2B, right? Business to business, professional to professional. And they pick up the phone and I get one of these. Hello, hello, or hello. And then I'll go, is this so-and-so? Yeah. Don't answer the phone like you're a teenager. You can say, this is Josh. I prefer to say every time I answer the phone and it's not a number that's already logged in my phone, I say, this is Josh with Tinderbox Marketing, or hi, this is Josh, every time, right? Returning calls, super important. I'll be honest, returning calls, getting back to voicemails, kryptonite for me. I'm not very good at it. If you call me, it's going to be, I have to get better at it. When you email me, I'll get back quick. But when you call me, it's like I'm out on the road and I'm out doing stuff, and then the voicemail's there and I see it and I know it's there, but then I get back to my office, throw my phone on the desk, and I forget about it, right? So returning calls, super important. And then I'm also very not good at returning text messages. That's another one of mine. So both with returning calls and text messages, you got to do it quickly and promptly, even if it's just can't really do anything about it right now, but I thought I'd get back to you. You know, I text that a lot. But text messaging, spell checking, avoiding a bunch of emojis, avoiding cursing, you know, these are all pretty standard things. All right, so we will talk face to face because I still think it's key and it's important to keep in mind, because we're going to get out of COVID-19. This is going to come to an end. Don't know when that is, but it's going to happen. My first rule when it comes to, or my tip when it comes to face-to-face interactions is don't make me wait. If you see me, if your employees see me, acknowledge me. Even if you're engaged with a customer, we walked through that scenario already, right? Even if you're already engaged with a customer, at least acknowledging me gives me patience as a customer, right? Helps me appreciate you and the job you're doing and lets me know that you're appreciating that I'm here. So don't make me wait, even if you have to tell me that I have to wait. Don't make me wait, acknowledge me, interact with me. Smile, always smile, even if you have to fake it. I'm not a liar. I don't advocate lying. I don't advocate white lies or any of that. But smiling, even when you don't feel like it, has been proven to be beneficial and to help. I mean, I think there's been studies that have done that, but it also helps your customers. You're in the business of serving people, right? Your job as a company is to sell product and to interact with customers. Most of us, that's where we land. Smile, interact with those people in a positive way. Keep your business private. This could be talked about as a, don't count your tips in front of the customer, right? If you are a fan of Home Alone, like my family and I are, one of the ones we like Home Alone 2. So we like Home Alone and Home Alone 2. Don't get me started on the other ones, but 1 and 2 are fine. And in the second one, the main bad guy, one of the hotel employees, is standing next to who I think his name's Cedric. And the actor is, I'll think of it. Anyway, and Cedric is counting his tips, and he's got his little white gloves on, and he's counting his tips. And the main bad guy says, Cedric, don't count your tips in public, and he puts them down. That's what I'm talking about. Keep your business private. Your customers should never hear about your business in a public setting. You should not spill the company beans. You shouldn't be talking badly about other employees. You shouldn't be talking badly about other customers. Don't air your dirty laundry in front of people. Keep that stuff private, especially when it comes to bad-mouthing customers and employees. You will know I've broken this rule. You'll note that I've broken this rule during this workshop, but that's only to try to put it into context of what we're trying to talk about. Dress code. I'm not into business attire. Now, if I stood up, I still have jeans on. I'm still wearing a collared shirt. That's pretty standard attire for me, even in normal circumstances, to wear a collared shirt and, jeans. But if you have to have a dress code that fits your business, right? So you have to have a dress code that's appropriate for what your business is. But I'm not talking about going overboard, but it's consistency, right? It's creating a consistent environment. I love Costco. Costco lets them basically wear whatever they want, jeans, t-shirts, but they're all consistent. Red vest designates a manager or a supervisor position. So if you ever see the red vest, you know what that is. And they all have their name badges. It's pretty consistent within inconsistency, but they're happy. I think your team needs to be happy and comfortable. One of my favorite rules for dress code came from Craig Groeschel's church. They life.church. And then they also have the Bible app. So if you're familiar with either of those, I was looking at their job board. I was doing some research for my own internal employee handbook, and they had in their job page, on their job opportunities page, that they had their dress code to kind of give you a heads up. And they said, wear what makes you comfortable and those around you comfortable. And I thought that was such a great way to phrase that. That should be your model. If you're a more formal business setting, that's fine, but it's got to be consistent, right? Before we're out of the face-to-face part of this, this is one of my favorite stories, and I want to tell it because I think it helps bring this thing to a close. This slide, not the workshop. I went to lunch with a buddy of mine several years ago. We went to a pizza place and we walked in and they had one of those, you've seen the signs, and it said, please wait to be seated. That's fine with us. And we were there before the lunch rush. I think it was like 11:30. So just before that noon, really high lunch rush. So we came in, sign was there. There wasn't another customer in the place that we could see. There was no one standing at the hostess or host station. And there was no waiters or waitresses or wait staff to be seen. But we didn't think about anything of it because we're talking. So we come in, we see the sign, please wait to be seated. So we're waiting to be seated. So we start chatting with each other. Pretty quick, I realized it's been a little while. It's been 5 minutes or so. And as time continues to go on, I notice I can see the kitchen, and I can see 3 kitchen staff, and they can see me and they can see us. Nobody else has come out. Not one of those 3 employees said anything to us. Didn't say, oh, they'll be right back, or they'll be right with you, or we'll go get somebody, or go ahead and grab a seat. They pretended to not see us, which I saw. And the reason why they did that is because they were all thinking to themselves, that's not my job. My job's not customer service. I'm back in the kitchen. I don't interact with customers. That's not my job. What a valuable experience it would have been for me as a customer to have them say, hey, we see you, we'll take care of you. I'll go get somebody and go grab a seat. We're aware of you, or, whatever. Didn't happen. Guess where I've never been back to eat? Little interactions mean a world of difference. All right, pro tip here, count your customers. If you're a retail space and you have a physical interaction with customers, count your customers daily. I went and did a workshop down in Colfax, and the owner of the Napa was there. And I was talking to her and I said, you know how many customers you get in a day? She goes, no, I know how many transactions I have. And I said, well, why don't you want to know the number of customers? And she didn't have an answer. I would want to know how many customers come into my business and then compare that to how many buy. That's an opportunity. Say 30 people come into your store, but only 25 buy. That's a pretty good rate. Why didn't the other 5 buy? What if it's worse? What if 30 people come in and only 10 are buying? That's a problem, right? So count your customers. Costco does, click, 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 right? And they do it for a couple of reasons. I'm sure it's for the data to know how busy their store is on a day in, day out, week in, week out basis. But it's also to help plan the front staff. If they get counting how many people come in, there's a threshold. They can tell the registers to be prepared for a wave of people coming through. I'm sure they know exactly how long it takes you and me to grab our cart, flash our membership thing, and how long it takes from that point to get into the average, how long it takes to get all the way through. I'm sure they know that. So they're counting. And if 50 people come in, they're going to call the front end and say, hey, gang, in a few minutes, you're going to be slammed. So be prepared. All right, online reviews. This is a separate section because it's a different sort of customer service experience. This is different than an online comment, which kind of falls into this category. This is different than somebody calling you to complain. This is somebody who took a moment to write a review about your business. Here's an example of how not to respond. So this is from the Crown and Anchor British pub. This is in Las Vegas. It's a place I've actually been to. I was there for a trade show. I was there with a client, and we were with a group of people. My client shared a booth space with one of their suppliers. And so there's about 8 or 10 of us. And they had all agreed that they wanted to go out to the Crown and Anchor British pub off the strip, not on the Las Vegas strip. It was off strip. I was just curious. I didn't care. I was going to go anyway. So I pulled up my phone, pulled up Yelp, and I found it, right? And one of the first reviews that showed up was this one. Now, you can see I screenshotted this. This review happened within the past 2 weeks from when I went there, right? This was a less than 2-week-old review. So this one says, came in at happy hour, ordered the fish and chips, and was charged $13.95. Then I checked to see the online menu price, and it was $10.95. So he's saying, disingenuous, right? Like you didn't have fair pricing or accurate pricing. Ordered a Guinness for $6. That's the happy hour price, he goes on to say. I will spread the, he says, needless to say, I was ripped off. I will not be coming back. I will spread the news far and wide. Service was good and a well-poured pint. But you do realize that on the strip at 9 Fine Irishmen, their happy hour price is $5. Happy hour food cheaper, and he's really disappointed. So what he's saying is, your prices were inaccurate, so I feel like I was ripped off. And here I am at this off-strip pub, and I'm paying more for my happy hour than a place on the strip. And that's fair logic. So the owner gets in and responds, says, John, I'm sorry you're disappointed with your visit. That's a good one. We take care of customer service very seriously and never intend to take advantage of your prices. That's great, heading in the right direction. To clarify, our website lists the fish and chips at $11.95. Oh, we're going a little off track because now we're starting to engage in a debate or an argument. But he does correct and say, which admittedly is an old price. Then he goes on, and this is going to bring up a couple points. To be honest, we were locked out of our website for the time being because our webmaster went out of business. We aren't able to make any changes. I apologize for the confusion and frustration. Hope you'll consider us another shot. Okay, so he argues and debates with the customer, and if you're going to do that offline. So what he should have done is said, I'd love to talk to you more about this. I'll give you a phone number you can call, and we'll take care of you. Or I'll give you an email address, or head to our website, or come back in. So that's how I would have handled that. But when it comes to the other thing, this is just a general business best practice. Do not ever be held hostage because you don't know how to access your stuff. You need to know your passwords and your logins. You need to know how to access your website and your Facebook and your email and everything. You wouldn't ever give a vendor who brings in product to your store a key and then not keep a key yourself. And that's what this guy did. He gave somebody a key to his store and then didn't keep one and just hoped that every time he went, it was already unlocked. That's not how you run a business. So how do you do this? Well, thankfully, Webster University put together a how to handle comments on social media. This is a comment, and we're gonna call this reviews. And what I love is that this comes from the Air Force. So what the first step is to assess the message, positive or negative. Right? If it's positive, there's a whole different set of things that you need to go through. It's a decision tree. If it's negative, then you have to go through and evaluate the purpose. And basically what they postulate is that there's 3 different kinds of people that are going to write a negative review or comment. They're either going to be genuinely unhappy, which we have to figure out how to deal with them. They're going to be a dedicated complainer. Somebody who, if you gave 100 gold bars to, would say, I'm frustrated, I want 101. Right? Like the person that you can't make happy, and then the comedian wannabe. Typically with the comedian wannabe, we're just going to let those comments lie. When it comes to the dedicated complainer, we're going to be tactful, and then the unhappy customer, we're going to work to take care of them. Bottom line is, take the conversation offline. Don't engage in a debate or a conversation about a negative customer service experience. Your general rule is to go, thank you for taking time to share with us. We're bummed to hear about it. Please email us or call us, and we want to talk to you more about it, right? Get the conversation offline. So when a negative comment comes in, thank you for sharing. We're sorry to hear about it, or we're bummed about this. Here's who you need to contact so we can take care of it. When it's positive, always respond. Always say thanks or share it or do what you need to do, but do not let a positive comment go unresponded to. The reason why responding to the negative comment in this way works so well, though, is because it shows the other customers that are looking at your reviews that you care and that you're willing to respond, but you don't debate and argue in a public space, right? All right. Wrapping this thing up, a couple of things to keep in mind throughout customer service interaction. Number 1 is smile. Smiling solves a lot of issues. Smile, smile, smile. Number 2, be a problem solver. Go out of your way to solve problems for the customers. Solving problems for the customers prevents problems for the business. Yes, you can attitude. My wife is famous for this. She will call a customer, so she gets into situations where, they should have paid something and they didn't, usually with health insurance, but gets into a customer service issue. Like I said, with health insurance, they should have paid something they didn't. Gets on the phone, and the standard customer service response is, well, I can't do that. We don't do that. I can't do that. My wife's famous response is, yes, you can. You're just choosing not to. You can. You're choosing not to. You can take care of most of the customer service issues that come your way. You can. You're choosing not to when you do. That's a positive attitude to have, the yes, you can attitude, and it goes a long way towards building goodwill with your customers. Don't be afraid. Making bold decisions on the behalf of the customer can go a super long way. Don't be afraid. Resources. Assess the situation. Where are things at right now in your customer? Sorry, I got ahead of my notes. Assess the situation. Where are things at right now? And who's doing what? Who's in charge of what decisions need to be made, and thinking about the systems that are in place. It's okay to have systems. I think systems solve a lot of problems. Staffing and training. Speaking of who's doing what, right? So who's in charge of what? Some of you might be a small business like me. That means you're wearing the same hat on the same head. You're wearing that customer service hat. You're wearing the marketing hat. You're wearing the sales hat. You're wearing all of it. So that's okay. Some of you might be part of a huge team, but you're here, you're listening to this, you're watching this to figure out customer service. And it all starts with understanding who's on the front lines, who is dealing with the customer, and what training do they need. Whether you're wearing all the hats or you're just a cog in a machine, you need to know who's responsible for what and who needs what training. Staff training is key. And if you don't know where you stand with customers, or you don't know where you are with your business and where customer service lands, survey, find out. I worked for Comcast years ago. Comcast was really good to survey all the employees. I also volunteer with SCORE. SCORE is really good to not only survey volunteers, but they also survey all the clients that SCORE meets with. That's what they call the people that get business mentoring through SCORE. They call them clients. We survey volunteers and they survey the clients. I want to mention a bonus here. Seth Godin wrote a really great blog, and I'm going to share that with you right now. And the blog is basically getting agreement ahead of time. So the blog is here. Sorry about that. How we do things around here is the blog. To summarize, he says you should have an agreement. Now, I have a contract that I have clients sign, right? And that determines how much they're paying me and the rules for the contract, and it's very legal, a lot of legalese. But what Seth is suggesting here is have like a informal agreement that covers different things than a contract does. So like this one, we always answer emails to each other within a day, even if it's just to say, I got it. Now this is for teams. So your customer service can be for your employees too, by the way. So this is not just for your customer, your public facing, but this can also be for your internal. And he says, whether this agreement is something that you make with your employees or whether this is agreement is something you make with your customer, especially in a B2B setting, it's a good one. So if you're a customer, we're going to invite you into a purpose-built Slack room. So Slack, if you use that, we'll pay our invoices before they're due. Things like if we're not sure, we'll ask each other. We don't miss deadlines. We don't sprint at the end. We sprint at the beginning. We don't make compromises simply because bad planning means that we're running out of time. This is in the resource guide too, and make that available. This is important. Having a different kind of agreement in place other than a contract, whether it's for your team customer service or your employee or your client customer service, can really help continue to move business forward and make sure that everybody feels like they're taken care of. All right. Let's finish this thing. So I like this quote. You were serving a customer, not a life sentence. Learn how to enjoy your work and learn how to enjoy interacting with customers. On that note, if you would like to contact me beyond this workshop, this is my contact information. So josh@tinderbox.marketing or www.tinderbox.marketing is my website. There I am on Twitter. There I am on Facebook. Feel free to reach out to me if you would want some help looking at your customer service. I'd even be happy to do a secret shopper for you in your business. So would be happy to do that if that is something you're interested in. Or I can do a free marketing review. So something I do as a part of my business process is to review the marketing that you have for your business and give you some feedback. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. You can go to Tinderbox.marketing and there's buttons all over the place to take you to a questionnaire, and I can get you dialed in with a free marketing review. So that said, I am going to now return to the question and answer section. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. All right, well, no questions. I will make sure that the materials are available to anybody who wants them. So email me, josh@tinderbox.marketing, to get your hands on the materials. If you're on my email list, you'll get them as a follow-up to this workshop. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you have lots of luck out there in the customer service world. And continue to check in on my Facebook page and my newsletter if you get that. I am trying to do workshops every Friday. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend and stay safe and stay healthy.